What's up, everybody? Sorry, a little later than usual, even. But I was waiting on my glasses to get clean in the dishwasher. I just got them out. So Thursday night live stream. It's been like 3 weeks, I think, since the last one of these live streams. I think it was like October 24 or 25. So I apologize for that. I apologize for the lack of content over the last couple of weeks, along with the lack of live streams. But I got sick. I was sick for like a few weeks, sort of on and off, never really hit me. Then last week or the week before, whenever, really hit me. Finally, I just fell apart, was in bed for a week. So it's just been kind of a perfect storm of, this happens kind of once or twice a year on the channel where I just totally tank and there's kind of like 3 or 4 weeks off. So that's what just happened. But we are back and ready for a pretty fun live stream. You can see we've got something very fun here on the table. We'll talk about this in just a second, as well as another bottle crack, the brand new Stagg 24B. So we're going to take a look at those. We got some blind pours tonight. I've got the black note cards here that Sarah made for a 5-pour blind flight, which we're going to get into. And then I am going to do, I'll do a quick review of this, which goes on sale tomorrow in the River Roots Facebook group. If you guys are in there, you know that this is going to drop tomorrow. It's a very short barrel. So I'm going to review this tonight. I was able to get my hands on this because I was part of the group that went down to the broker and picked this barrel. So just, full disclosure at the beginning of this live stream. And then I'm also going to be doing a batch 1, 2, and 3 blind flight. So we've got a couple of blinds to get into tonight. Batch 1, 2, and 3 of 13th Colony Double Oaked, right? So we're going to limit it to that. I don't have a bunch of new bottles. Like these aren't even mine. These 2 Staggs we're going to get into. So I haven't been purchasing, new stuff. I haven't gone out to the store in the last couple of weeks because I've been sick. So as far as like new releases or new shelfers or things like that have been popping up, I just don't have any of that. And I don't have any like brand new samples of stuff to check out like that either. So tonight is going to be kind of a casual live stream. No giveaway, nothing like that. We're just hanging out. So hit that like button on your way in. We've almost got 100 people already, which is very cool. And I think it's going to be fun. Just kind of weave in and out of doing some of these things. And we'll try to go, generally speaking, from lowest to highest proof throughout the night. Although I'm sure that we're going to interrupt that a few times as we go through it as well. And you can see behind me, and on the table too, with these, you can see that Sarah has started decorating the bottles for Christmas time, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and then by the way, for those of you who are not on the Patreon, number one, I'm going to plug the Patreon a little bit more during live streams, so let me just apologize to you in advance. However, I did just get back from Mississippi. I was down at Crittenden's. So right here, this is Crittenden's Mothman bottle. Crittenden's is a craft distillery, small operation down in Kiln, Mississippi, which is about, depending on how you look at it, I drove in from New Orleans. I flew into New Orleans, so it's an hour from New Orleans. It's a very small operation, a couple thousand barrels, I think, on site, something along those lines. And we picked some very old whiskeys, like some of the oldest stuff that Crittenden's, I think, has probably put out. Some 7 years, which is great. 2 bourbons, 2 ryes. We could talk about that maybe at some point in the stream. But let me get something in my glass. Let me know what you guys are sipping on tonight. We have to de-hat the Eagle Rare store pick so I can get some in my glass. Palate feels a little wonky right now. I don't know why. I think maybe just I've been fighting dehydration with all the travel and all the doing a barrel pick dehydrates me for like 2 days. Justin, so speaking of Justin, who's here in the chat, I know Nollins, I know, but I will say Louisville, but I don't feel like I've been to New Orleans enough to say Nollins, but that's okay. Speaking of Justin in the chat, who is drinking the Crittenden's picks right now, I gave him about half an ounce of each of those today. We met up. I drove over to Indiana and back to meet Justin, and he hooked me up with this Stagg 2024. So Justin, I'll try to keep the paper intact. I've never had one with the paper, so try to keep this intact. Put it on my desk over here. So guys, we're going to be cracking this George T. Stagg 2024 tonight, courtesy of Justin, as well as the Stagg 24B. So the least I could do was give Justin about a half an ounce of 8 of our upcoming picks so he could taste them, 1 or 2 sips, give some feedback maybe throughout this live stream or in the Discord. Curious to hear what he thinks of some of those. He says, I don't give a shit about the paper. Chris just cracked the Opus 1 my wife won in your raffle last live stream, and it's ridiculously good. Great job on this pick. Thank you, man. Got that back here. Been getting some really good feedback on that Opus. So anyways, cheers, guys. Little Eagleware store pick in the glass. Yeah, my palate's gonna need a second to get kind of locked in here. So we won't go straight into the blind flight because I can feel my palate having a little hard time right now. Let me check out who's hanging out tonight. Get a couple things up here on the screen. What's up? Good to see you guys. Ryan, John, Parker. Joe says, I miss Christine. That's an inside joke if you guys don't know that. Mike Conklin, only 4 bottles on the thumbnail. That's manageable, but blind pours, yeah, it leaves a lot of possibilities. 6.5 minutes late. I think it was 9. That's not great. Jeb, just watching commercials like a peasant while waiting for the commies to score on the Eagles again. Marshall says, my kid won't go to sleep. Marshall was down at the Crittenden's pick, guys. That was a fun pick. That was on Tuesday. Rob, so talking about Foregate here. Let's see. Those too rich for my blood, says Marshall. Yeah, Foregate, guys, for me, I'd be curious what you think in the chat. I've had some really amazing bottles from Foregate. I've also had some stuff that absolutely does not live up to the $200 price tag, which is pretty flat across the board for all of their stuff. Given the ratio of hits to misses, there's no way for me that I could blindly buy Foregate. It also, because of that, means that Foregate picks are just kind of out of the question for Drums and Drams. Just because of that hit to miss ratio and the price point kind of being solidly $200. I love the guys at Foregate, good dudes, but it's just value-wise, that's a tough one for me. So even when my friends pick bottles from Foregate, it's something that I just kind of avoid because it feels a little risky. Just to be honest, no disrespect to Foregate, because again, like I've had some bottles that blow me away, and then I've had others that you just don't make a lot of sense value-wise. Sam, maybe it's 9 p.m. Central. Well, then we're really early. you guys are. This is late even for Cam. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Jeb could have pooped while waiting. That is a missed opportunity, Jeb. If you got to do it, you just got to go do it. Take your phone in there with you. Joe, guys, Joe's pooping right now. I mean, we're not even to the 10 o'clock hour, and we're talking about poop. Cam did mention he was 4 minutes late to a barrel pick this week. I was in fact 4 minutes late to the barrel pick. All right, so let's keep scrolling. Ben One Hat, everybody says that's cool. Yeah, we're working on the merch. We're working on the glasses. Everything is in progress or in process right now, and hopefully we'll have an update soon for you on that. You're also going to see, for those of you not in the Patreon, you probably, I haven't mentioned this, you're going to start seeing a lot of shorts from the channel. I've got some help now with shorts, and in the beginning stages, it's just going to be a lot of live content getting repurposed into shorts, which I think is going to be good for engagement, good for viewership and stuff. And then slowly we're going to start working in some more of those produced shorts like I've released on the channel before. And I'm excited for that. I like to do those. Okay. I'm going to scroll down. Justin, starting off with Barrel 88, which is a Crittenden's it's going to release next month. Everything I want from a crit bourbon. Yeah, that's just a solid, like, if anybody hasn't had Crittenden's and you have that, which is going to turn 7 years old next Thursday, it's like, oh shit, this is Crittenden's. It's a very, very good introduction to that brand. Axel says, agreed on Foregate. I've had one stellar one and like 3 to 4 that were meh, and yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Justin, so Justin, should I taste like 2 of the Crittenden's right now real quick at the beginning of the stream? Terry had to jump in on the poop talk too. Good Lord. Tony Bagadonuts, Foregate is a tough one for you, but $200 to $300 River Roots is, well, Tony, look, on the 4-gate picks, again, this, don't quote me on this, but from what I've heard is that they finish, like you pick something and they're going to finish it, and they decide when it's done finishing. I'm like 99% sure that's what I've heard. Again, if that's wrong, please correct me. But that seems like a very big risk if I'm being totally honest. So the River Root stuff, I can go when I can taste it, you know, and we're not talking about a finishing barrel. Justin, I could have like one sip. Especially, I think of barrel 46, I have enough. Yeah, and that's the one with the dusty quality. Okay, well, let's crack some bottles just to get some air in these. So I need to do a good crack here on this GTS, which, wow, that is not tearing well, Justin. Let me just apologize in advance. This is the worst tearing foil I have ever seen on a BTAC bottle. This is... That's a little bit of a messy line there, bro. I'm sorry about that. All right. There we go. Let's crack this Stagg 24B as well. Look at this. This is a great tear. Man, that George T. Stagg, dude, I'm sorry. I like a good clean rip on these foils, but... yeah, whoops, just tear it off the neck. Let's get this open. Okay, interesting. We'll come back to these. Nick, you're funny. Marshall says, Crittenden's left me wanting more. Marshall, you mean that in a positive way, I think. Like you wanted to drink more of it. Was surprised Matt led us into some of those barrels. I know, like we got into some of the oldest stuff I feel like I've seen come out of Crittenden's. And again, I don't live locally, but the 7-year stuff seems to be some of the oldest stuff that they've got. Bourbon Badger says, heard you got a short barrel double oaked Bourye. Yeah, that is true. Did get one of those. It was bottled, I think it was bottled today. And I'm going to have one of them shipped up here. Those aren't going to release until like January 31st for the channel, but it was bottled very early because it needed to get out of the barrel. And I think they may have toted it and then today bottled it or something like that. So the label looks great. It's a new product for them. They've never released a double oak Bourye. So, all right, let's see. What are we going to get into first, guys? Let me ask you, do you want to do Blind Flight first? I think we got 140 in here. My palate feels good now. Couple sips of Eagle Rare, and I feel like I'm pretty on right now. So, what do you think? You want to get into the blind first? That fake foil tears differently, says James. Yeah. It left this weird, I don't know. It's almost like there was a plastic layer in it or something. It's kind of strange. Let's do the blind. So let me get one more glass. So let's do a 5-pour blind here to start the night off. Again, no giveaway this evening, y'all. Just any super chats are just donations to the channel, which are sincerely appreciated, but absolutely not necessary. So from left to right, I've got samples. These are from a very, very generous member of the Patreon who shall remain unnamed. We have samples 10. And these were picked by him for this flight. 10, 11, 12, 13, and 22. Now, I do have, like I mentioned, I do have the black note cards here so that I can show you guys what I'm sipping as I go along. And I've got the test card so that we can make sure everything is good and in focus. Justin, sending you a Venmo request for $800 for ruining my bottle. Ooh, I'm not going to fulfill that. I'll just ship it back. Bourbon Badger says, heard it was a roller coaster of flavor, all in a good way. Yeah, it's a crazy one. It's a crazy double oak, and I'm not a big double oak fan, to be totally honest with you. But this one is like just maple and chocolate. It doesn't have any of that sharpness or that kind of bright woody spice. It's very much just a dark, syrupy, again, chocolate and maple are the two main notes that you get from it. And the range of ages in the blend, 5 to 12 years old. MGP rye, Green River bourbon, MGP bourbon. So it's a really cool blend. Okay. So let me get these rearranged. And we'll get these samples poured out. So the goal of tonight's blind flight, as requested by the person that donated these samples, is to not only make some guesses on these whiskeys. Two really good colors in the first two pours. Not only make guesses on these whiskeys of age, proof, whether or not it's finished, distillery, bottle guess, type of whiskey, all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff, but to also give these a pretty decent review along the way too. So I'm going to be kind of talking about the quality, ranking them top to bottom, making some guesses, kind of an all-encompassing sort of blind flight. And I think this is going to be fun, especially because a lot of times I don't get to these blind flights till the end of these live streams, and then my palate's shot, and it's just less fun, I think, for everybody. Bourbon Badger says, Clinton put out a one-of-a-kind double oak a couple months ago, and it's incredible. So what was going on with that one? If you can share the info on it. What was the base whiskey, and what was the finishing cask? How long? All that. Oop, little spill. That just means the glass is coated very well. Yeah, I don't like double oaks, and then here I am picking all these, because I'm trying to find double oaks. Here's what I should say. I don't like most double oaks, because I think most of them are pretty bad. But I have kind of found my flavor pocket when it comes to double oaks, and now that I've found it, I'm trying to just go for them. Because I think they're different than a lot of other picks that I've had from other people. And so I think it's kind of a cool thing to separate our picks with that. Justin, I'm looking at your message right now. All right, so let's start with sample 10. So here's the test card. Looks like we're going to be good with focus and everything. So I can put that to the side. Take some notes here in the old notebook. I need a bigger table. We're getting to that point. It might be time to invest in a larger Amazon table. All right, 10, 11, 12, 13, 22. So here is what's in glass 10, and please no spoilers in the chat, you guys. After this blind flight, we're going to get into the George T. Stagg, the River Roots, the 13th Colony stuff, which is all very high proof, which is why I think this blind flight we should probably just get into first. So yeah, please no spoilers in the chat. If I show you Elijah Craig on this card, don't start talking about Heaven Hill. Don't say Elijah Craig. If you do, a mod's going to time you out, or I'll time you out or something like that. So here we go. In this first glass, which is glass 10, this is what we have. And please let me know if the handwriting, I should move this mic over here. Please let me know if the handwriting is okay. Sarah wrote these earlier. All right, so right away, I get a heavy, heavy wood presence on here. This is not like a very aged oak. Well, I don't know. It does feel like it could have some age to it, but it feels like there's something extra. It feels like this could be a double oaked product. But if it is a double oak product, at least first impression on the nose is that it's coming off with a decent bit of balance, I would say. Yeah, it's a little sawdusty, a little bit of like something popping out of the texture, citrusy, peppery almost. Like this could possibly be like a high rye bourbon that's got some sort of finish on it. That's kind of where my mind goes at first. Smells good, doesn't smell great. Hint of rubber in here. All right, let's taste it. Almost a tequila influence. There's almost something like, that's a weird call, but floral tequila, I don't know. Wow. Big, powerful whiskey. Very spicy. There's something so familiar about this pour. Were you guys able to read that okay? Someone just give me a little thumbs up in the chat or something. Justin still tasting the Crittenden's picks that we did. So we picked, again, 2 ryes, 2 bourbons. He says the crit ryes remind me of the driftless rye, just not as fruity and more citrus, more punch. They are super punchy ryes. Especially, Justin, I think barrel 446, that one is like, it's a laser beam of just rye spice, but it's a humongously like mouth-coating whiskey. But then you go to barrel 150, which is the really weird one. And, dude, you got to tell me what you think about barrel 150, because there's some stuff in there I can't put my finger on. All right, back to this glass 10. This almost has like a Scotch cask type finish to it or something. It's like I'm getting some weird tequila, almost Isla Scotch kind of feel. It's barbecuey. That's really what it is. It's not rubber. It's more barbecue. Look, the palate. This thing drinks really, really well. I'm going to guess like 123 proof, maybe. I would say this is probably finished because there's so much going on here that I don't really understand it. Where's it from? I mean, that's tough. Let me show you guys, remind you guys again what's in this glass. But this barbecue note and this kind of tequila agave kind of thing is going on that's really freaking me out. I would say it's most likely from a craft distillery. But look, even if the nose is not quite my flavor pocket, the palate is really great. So I'll come back to that. But I do think, like, would I recommend that whiskey? Actually, yes. To a select audience of people, I think I'll put a check, not a check plus. But I do like that whiskey, even though it's kind of weird. All right, so let's go to glass. This is sample 11, which is going to be glass B. All right. Let me know if this card is upside down, because Sarah just wrote she didn't put the little tops on the ones. So I think this should be right side up, but let me know. Let's go ahead and get a nose on this next one, glass 11. Oh, that smells unbelievable. Oh my God. This is like dusty butterscotch, oatmeal, like an oatmeal cookie. Just chocolate ganache, like, wow. Sweet, sweet oak. That smells like a dusty or like an orphan barrel. You know, it's in the, that smells incredible. Was that right side up, guys, that card? What's up, Jeremy? Good to see you, man. Just doing a little blind here to start the stream. It feels good to do a blind on a fresh palate. Holy crap. Let me tell you what. This whiskey smells impeccably good. And as you would expect with a nose like that, you start smelling all these crazy aged flavors. And then the immediate worry is this is probably going to be a low proofer. You know, it's probably going to be a little bit flat with this much oak. Seemingly, like I would imagine that there's water added to something this old. Then you taste it. Unfortunately, the palate doesn't pop. It's very, very static, kind of placid. There is a little ramp up, I think, in the end, which actually, Justin, reminds me of that Crittenden's Barrel 46. But this is not a fruity whiskey. This is a pure butterscotch, caramel, chocolate ganache. Like, it's all these caramelized and chocolate notes. And if you wanted to try to convince me that there's any fruit in this glass, you would have to say it's some sort of dry, dark fruit, which is a super generic thing to say in this case, because I don't actually pick that up. But it's just such a dark whiskey that you could probably convince me of it, you know, if you really tried. Bourbon Badger says, we were talking about the short barrel earlier. Short barrel, single barrel daycare. New Kelvin Char 4. Let's see, medium toasted, had 7-month finish. 6.2 year Bardstown. So it was probably the Green River mash bill. 70-21-9. Yeah. That's cool. We tasted a few of those double oaks at Short Barrel. We tasted, before we got to the Bourye that we picked, we went through one or two, I think, that were actually this distillate, the Green River mash bill, and maybe actually in a Char 4 as well. And a few, like, they were very, very close. One of them was closer than the other. Actually, you know, we started, which is tough to start a barrel pick with double oaked, because you're hitting your palate right away with like really big flavors. We started with 2 double oaks is what we did. And one of them was very close, but didn't quite have enough pop on the palate. That's what it was. So let me show you guys one more time what's in glass 11. I'm going to write some of these things down about this one. Smells incredible, though. I would say this probably has to be a Kentucky bourbon, because I don't remember ever getting a profile quite this old school dusty feeling outside of Kentucky. Let's put that down. Proof. It almost has a little extra. It's very flat on the front, and then there's this great spice that picks up mid to back palate. Front of the palate feels like 86. Back of the palate feels like 96 proof. So let's shoot in the middle. Let's say this is a 92 proofer. I'm going to say it's a very, very old Kentucky bourbon. I mean, frankly, this could end up being just a Michter's 10, because some of the Michter's 10s tend to taste a little bit older than they are. Some of them actually are older. But I think this is probably a Dusty. So because of that, I don't know where it came from. I'm going to say this is pre-Fire Heaven Hill. 92. Age on this. That's tough. The more I smell it, let me go back to glass 1 and come back. Yeah, it's just because glass 1's so damn different. This might not be as old as I think. This could be like 12 to 14. So let's say 13 years old. All right, so let's keep moving. We're moving through this pretty quickly, actually. Sandeep says, Cameron, what'd you think about Parker's Heritage 2024? So this was the cognac finished American single malt. What was the proof? I think 107-ish. I haven't tried this one yet. And I've heard from some very trusted people who aren't big American single malt fans that bottle is excellent. And that, yes, you might want a little more proof on it, but the flavors are like unbeatable. I'm very curious about this one, but I'm not willing to shell out the secondary prices, especially for an American single malt that's finished and watered down. You know, and you're talking, I don't know what it is, 500 or 700. It's like many hundreds more dollars than it should be. So I'm not willing to take the risk until I try a sample. Even after I try a sample, I can almost guarantee I wouldn't buy that at that cost. But I don't know. Has anybody in the chat tried it? I have not tried. So when we were there, I asked about the After Swarm and all that stuff, and I don't think that stuff was quite ready when we were there picking. I've never actually tried the Bee's Knees, but I do have a sample of it. If you remind me after this blind flight, I can get into that sample. Justin gave that to me. This is basically Justin's live stream tonight. He made the George T. Stagg and the Stagg happen, and I got the Bee's Knees and everything else. And then again, we've got someone who supplied these amazing, pretty cool pours for this blind. So let's now get into the next one. I'm gonna write myself another note here. No finish. Tequila, mesquite, question mark. Smoky / Isla. A few more notes on the first two. So let's go into glass 12 now. What's up, Toshi? Oh, dear God. Is this another Dusty? Well, now this makes the other one smell. Glass 11 may have come from a decanter. It has a little bit of that decanter funk to it. All right, let's go to glass 12 now. So here is this. So this is 100 bajillion% a Dusty. I have to guess that. So it's interesting now. It feels like 2 of the 3 are Dusties, but that first one is about as opposite as you could possibly be when I'm like as compared to the Glass B and Glass C. Glass A is in a different league. Not necessarily in a better way. All right, so on this one feels like a watery dusty on the nose. It has that effect on the nose where it's like you've added a lot of water to this bourbon. It's a little bit bready almost on the nose. If you told me this was a wheater, I would believe you because I get a little bit of a wheat bread sensation. But in this glass, which is different than Glass B, I'm picking up a lot of fruit on this one. So kind of like dark berries, I would say. Yeah, kind of grapey almost. Again, guys, please, no spoilers in the chat. Whatever I show you on the cards, don't mention it or anything similar to it in the chat, please. Let's grab a few of these here. Did you try 2024 Garrison Cowboy? No, unfortunately not. I'm probably not going to get to try that. I'm not going to be somebody to pick it up. It's not really my flavor profile. I can appreciate the fact that people like that flavor profile, but for me, I just can't reach for it. Nick, have you tried the Westward? The Matt Porter tried that night with you. Junkies also loved it and said it was insanely good. It's just not really my thing, man. That one has Amburana in it. It's done well, but I think actually Matt sent me both of them. I just am not... They both have that kind of marijuana, like weed finish, that very herbal thing to them. Yeah, I just don't think that most American single malts are my thing, especially from the big places that people talk about. Westward being one. I think, who's the other one that I get that note on? Oh, the Dragon's Milk, like the origin stuff from New Holland. Okay. Let's go back to glass 12 now. I just showed you. I'll show it again just one more time here. There you go. This drinks like a dusty turkey. It drinks like a dusty turkey. I'm going to go back and forth real quick between 12 and 11. Excuse me, C and B. It's interesting. The proof on these is very, very tough for me. I think 12 is probably a lower proof. Sorry, I keep going by the samples. I think C is probably a lower proof than B. And I think it's from an older era of whiskey, actually, than B. So, however, I said B was probably 92 proof. This one feels even lower. It could be like an 86 or an 80 type proof. But I think I might actually just be low on proof all the way around right now. What's up, Dustin? Great to see you again. Late to party. Have you tried the 24 GTS? No, we got to get through this blind flight first. Dude, we have 200 people on this live. That is crazy. What is happening? I mean, I haven't been online in like 3 weeks because of being sick. There's 200 people in here. Wow. Thank you guys for being here. Very cool. It's still kind of a pinch me thing when I see the channel growing like it has. Very, very cool. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. That would help get even more people in here. And again, I told you I'm going to shameless plug a little more on the live streams. If you haven't checked out the Patreon, $5 or $10 a month. The other tiers are all sold out. But we have some great barrel picks coming up. We've got 3 barrels from Backbone coming on the 29th. And then about a week and a half later, we're going to be dropping some serious whiskey from Crittenden's, as well as a nearly 13-year MGP rye at 110 proof. So all great prices on those. The Backbones are like 55 to 65. The Crittenden's are probably going to be about 70 or less. And the 12-year rye, or almost 13-year rye, is going to be $120. So like insanely good prices. So I'm happy for all that and looking forward to those drops. Okay. So yeah, I'm back and forth here. 11 and 12. B and C. I gotta get together on this. It does. You know what? B does really smell like pre-fire Heaven Hill. It really, really does. And C really smells like Dusty Turkey. C's got to be low proof. That's got to be. I don't know any Dusty Turkey that's 86 proof. But this feels like an 86 or a 90. Glass B feels a little more robust. I could see that being 94. I'm going to say 94. I'm going to say 86 on this. Dusty Turkey. I'm going to say age. I don't know that Glass C is particularly old. I mean, it could be a lot of things. It could be Dusty Old Forester this could be 1960s. It does actually remind me a little bit of a 1960s Old Forester profile. Dusty Turkey or maybe OF 60s, question mark. I'm going to say 86 proof. Age on this, I don't think it's super high. I'm going to go with 8 years. I think it's a bourbon, unfinished. So here's the deal. Quality-wise, I've been talking notes and I've been talking guesses, but I want to talk quality. I think this is a very delicious whiskey, Glass C. Being a low-proof Dusty, it's something that leaves you wanting more, but the profile is so novel that you can't help but love it and want to just drink so much of this. I could absolutely crush the rest of the sample right now. It's so good. But do I think it's like a perfect whiskey? No. And even by today's standards, even though the flavors are so novel and so good as compared to modern-day whiskey, it still is like an 80 point, 80 out of 100, 83 out of 100. Like we're in the lower 80s, and I think you would just need to have a little more proof, a little more oomph to bring this whiskey up. Now, I'm not good at rating scales, so take all of my numbers that I may give in this flight with a grain of salt. But I think a more robust and more substantial whiskey is probably the one just before it in Glass B, which feels slightly more modern, but it has just a wider, broader, caramelized, chocolatey profile. Butterscotch in particular, and so I think I would probably gravitate towards that, even though the notes in Glass C are so cool. All right, let's move on to Glass D, which is sample 13, Lucky 13. Anthony James just poured a Little Book Chapter 8 that I traded for a Weller 12. I think I got the better end of the deal. Yeah, curious, Anthony, what you think about that. Chapter 8 for me was not necessarily my favorite flavor profile, but I could appreciate the fact that it was a very complex whiskey, lots of layers to it, and a very interesting profile actually for a Jim Beam product because it's so dill and herbal. Much more of a rye drinker's rye, I think, than anything I've probably had from Jim Beam. It reminds me a lot of a Willet Green Top, rye whiskey. Bourbon Badge, where'd you get the MGP rye? River Roots. So we have a really, really great relationship with an NDP in Cleveland called River Roots. They've been around for a little over a year, and they are like seriously making waves, I feel like, in the whiskey community. And so it was really cool to link up with them early on in the process, which kind of allows us to get some really cool barrels from those guys. And so shout out to Ryan and Tom and Tim and everybody else up there. I mean, it feels like the team at River Roots is growing, and that it's growing proportionally to the impact they're having in the whiskey community. So we're going to get into some of this very, very short barrel of 15-year Kentucky bourbon from them later on in the stream. We'll actually compare it to the George T. Stagg because the proofs are close. All right, on to Glass D now. All of these have great colors as well. This is going to be a little bit of a tougher sell. We were cooking, like in terms of profiles that I like, and now we're in experimental land here. So here we go. Let me show you what's in this one. Again, please no spoilers. Wow, I mean, it smells like aftershave. Very, very floral and like herbal and botanical, juniper. Like there are some underlying caramelized notes underneath it. But the top note of this whiskey, which is the thing that really takes over the nose, super floral and botanical. Wow. Oh. Oh, wow. That tastes like old school MGP rye whiskey. Like, this tastes like stuff from let's say 2014 to 2019 era of stuff that was being released from various places. Very interesting rye. The nose, to me, it's funny, we were just talking about Little Book Chapter 8. This has kind of a Little Book Chapter 8 vibe to it, interestingly enough. However, the thing that's making me think old school MGP is the lemon lime note. The nose doesn't have it. The nose, well, when I say Alka-Seltzer, you start thinking effervescent, you think lemon lime, maybe. But the nose had more of the juniper-y, botanical, very herbal-driven dill. And then you get it on the palate, and those notes, which to me are intense notes, like when you're talking herbal and all that, they're intense notes. They're very distinct, but they're not broad notes. They're like pointy. Does that make sense? Like when I think of like herbal, floral, botanical, those are like triangles, like the tips of triangles. And when I think of what I'm going to say here, which on the palate, it changes. It goes to lemon lime. It gets a little more, a little lemon lime, a little bit more of this candied orange thing. Those notes are more like ovals. You know, they're like a little bit more broad, if that makes sense. So it's interesting here, the kind of the duality, you know, nose, very pointy, palate, you get that on the front end, but then it really broadens out. There's one off note on the nose that I can't figure out. But okay, so anyways, I think this is a rye whiskey. I think it's probably 95.5 MGP. And if it is, then it's an older one. Doesn't taste like modern day stuff. There's a good bit of like tobacco oak presence on the back end of this one. It's confusing whiskey. I could see this being 7 to 10 years, which is a little bit of a wide range. 7 to 10, MGP question mark. If it's not an MGP 95.5, and with these notes that I'm ascribing to being an older version of this, then I think those notes are coming from the fact that it could be from a craft distillery. So I'm hedging. I'm gonna have a backup plan and say craft question mark. 7 to 10 MGP, rye, no finish, and then proof. Proof on this. It's like a pretty solid proof. This is like, and rye's gonna hit harder. It's gonna be like a 117 to 120. Let me taste glass one more time. This is gonna be a crazy one to go back and forth with. Super bright, botanical, herbal. Glass one, mesquite, and a little bit of this tequila note. That'll knock your freaking palate out. Eric, no spoilers, dude. No spoilers. Because now I know that it's a whiskey that's in stores now. You know? So, like, no, I know it's fun to discuss these things, but no comments on these whiskeys, at least until we're going through them pretty quick. So we'll be the end here in just a second. We can talk about it, but it's a very challenging flight. Like, I feel like I'm all over the place right now. And this is the most fun kind of a flight for me. When they're all very similar, it's tougher and a little less fun because you're just racking your brain. I don't know what this is. It's so weird. I might be ascribing complexity and old school MGP to just like a wacky off-profile youthful whiskey, you know? But I will say this. This is not my profile. I respect if it is your profile, no matter what it ends up being. I don't know. So we'll come back to it. Proof, I'm going to go... I think it's pretty intense. I'm going to go 125, and I might have to move my guess for glass A down in proof just a bit. All right, last one. Last whiskey of this flight. 205 people in here. Crazy. What's up, Josh? Says, I'm excited for you to try your short barrel pick. It's so good. Yeah, man. I'm excited to get it, so I appreciate it. John, every time I go back to the Drums and Drams Green River, I'm blown away. How is this 5.5 years? I don't know. That is a, to me, that's a crazy barrel of Green River. So glad we got that. All right, last one. What is that? This flight is very, very tough. All right, here we go. My God, I thought the last one was aftershavey. I mean, this is even more. So here's 22. I need a set. My stomach is like, what are you doing? What are all these very different things? It's just grassy to me on the nose. It's grassy, but also a little Buffalo Tracy in a weird way. Like kind of that honey and cherry syrup note. Let's put this down. Ooh, very grassy. That's a big no for me. There are other things in this whiskey that feel super redeemable. Like, outside of the grass, man, the grass is hitting me so hard. That's going to make me, like, nauseous, actually. That's a note that I cannot do in whiskey. Jeremy, this person prefers to remain anonymous, so. Or we could give them a fake name. Wow, that. Ooh. So that's last place. It's just going to be a hot take on my order, I think. It's low proof. Although a good kick of spice at the end, way less grass on the second sip after you get used to it. Oh, man, I don't like that at all. It feels like it could be 100 proof. The spice is disproportionate to the rest of the whiskey. Grass, spearmint. The proof is so hard on this one. I don't know if it's a rye or if it's a very grassy and spicy bourbon. Those are... All right, I'm going to give myself just a second to reset on these. We'll do a quick kind of shoot around here. So I'm going to start with Glass C, which I think is the lowest proof, dusty. Just smells amazing. Has that kind of a little bit of a Play-Doh note that you get on really, really old distillate. Yeah. Yeah, that's like water. Let's move on to Glass B. finish on Glass B is very, very good. It just, the way it ramps up in the finish after feeling kind of flat on the front, that's going to be my favorite of the flight. My second place is going to be Glass C. My third place, it's actually going to be Glass D, the super herbal one. My fourth place is going to be the kind of mesquite crazy thing in Glass A. And then the one I just tasted, the Grass Bomb, which we're going to return to now. That's definitely last place. I have no idea what that is. I'm going to say 100 proof. I think it's actually still a bourbon, even though it has so many rye attributes. Bourbon, 6 years. Something feels really deceptive about this last glass, where I could see this being a very old whiskey. I don't know why I'm saying that. I could see that being like a very watered down but bad 15 to 20-year-old product, because you guys are going to be, someone is going to be upset when I say this. It reminds me of Double Eagle Very Rare in that way, where it's really grassy, but you're like, this kind of feels like really old whiskey. Now, Double Eagle is better than what's in this glass by 100 million %, but the same effect is present, is what I'm saying. So I feel like this has a very small percentage chance of being a high-aged whiskey that's been watered down and the barrels weren't good. But more likely is the fact that this is a young, grassy, strange pour that I'm not as into. So let's get into it now. We're going to reveal that one first, which is my last place. I don't know if I should score these. This would be in the 60s for me. All right, so. Wow. Wow. Peg Leg Porker. Tennessee Rye. Says Dickel, aged 8 years. Yeah, that's not good. Limited edition. It's 105 proof. I said 100 proof. I said bourbon, but again, like I said, it could have been a rye. Yeah, it makes total sense. It's just so grassy. 8 years. I said 6. And okay, charcoal filtering. Yeah, I'm good on that. I'm good on that one. Mike says, damn, sounds like I need to flip my Dever. Yeah, dude, I mean, Mike, no offense, man. I am not a Double Eagle fan. Like, I don't like this stuff very much. Just, it's crazy to me that it gets that grassy at that age and that they don't recognize that, to me, as an off note. Like, I think grassiness is an off note in whiskey. OFC, like OFC 96, very good. Teeny bit of grassiness in there, but way, way better than Double Eagle. And what was the other one the Weller Millennium, which has zero grassiness, is just pure flavor, incredible, but the price is hilarious. All right, let's go to fourth place now, which is Glass A. I said 123 proof. Oh, I didn't change that. I meant to re-guess this. I hate the way this smells. I'm going to say 118. I think it's finished. I think it could be a craft whiskey. It feels like tequila mesquite or Isla finished, something like, or a combination of these things. An age guess on this, I have no idea. 7 years old. What? Okay. That is correct. Okay. I get it now. And these are all rebarreled. So this is Nashville Barrel Company. I think these are mostly rebarreled. Nashville Barrel, single barrel straight bourbon. I said it was a bourbon. It is 120 proof. I said 118. It's 5 years. I said 7. This is Rochester Elite pick. This is not good. And no offense, it's unique. And so I could see how this would stand out. I don't want to say it's not good. It's not good to me. For my palate right now. I can appreciate why someone likes it, especially on a barrel pick. This would come across as super unique, very, very savory. It's almost so mesquite-y and savory that it reminds you of Dickel. But that's why I said mesquite finished or Isla finished. It's so smoky that doesn't even make sense, actually, for this being MGP. Man. So part of the weirdness of this, and now that I know it's MGP, it's hitting me as this note, but it wasn't before, is it's that yeast note, that young yeast note that you get on MGP. And it feels like, it would be a weird description, but when I get that yeast note heavy on young MGP whiskeys, it's always got a texture to it. It's very gritty on the palate. Even on the nose, it smells like it's going to be textured, if that makes sense. And so because that's like a texture, imagine like coarse sandpaper. And coarse sandpaper is going to have probably more residue left on it after you scrape it against something than fine sandpaper, right? It's like it's going to attract more because it's coarser. This feels like a very coarse whiskey, and it feels like whatever happened in the barrel, which maybe this was secondarily barreled, which I've heard NBC a lot of stuff is, maybe that second barrel really added something like gritty to that coarse yeast note, because it feels like it has this crazy smoky texture to the whiskey. But at the end of the day, that is very odd. I can't believe that's just 5-year MGP. Okay. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to be disrespectful about that. That's just not my jam. All right, so let's go. Travis, it's 5 years, that pick. Next up, 13, which is Glass D. This is the one that I said could be an old school MGP rye, or it could be like a weird craft rye. And now, judging by what I've had so far, this could absolutely be craft, because these are very interesting single barrels and interesting choices. I said 7 to 10 year MGP. I would go on the younger side of that. I would probably say 7 or 8. I said 125 proof, rye, no finish. If it's not MGP, it's craft. Wow, okay. Hey, you know what? I'll take this. I was high on the proof, which makes sense. It's a rye. Tumbling Dice. Sealbox pick. 8 years old. I just ended up saying 7 or 8. It is 95.5 MGP. However, it's not old school MGP. It was distilled in 2014 and released in 2023. So it's not quite old school, but it does have that different flavor profile than a lot of the MGP ryes that we've been seeing this year. However, yeah, I'm off by about 9 proof points. Otherwise, pretty decent guess. Definitely not my preferred MGP rye profile. But I placed it third for a reason. It's still solid whiskey on the palate, especially for me, over the nose. Michael Hogan says, this may be the dumbest flight I've ever watched, random stuff thrown together, but that's why it's fun, man. And actually, so the person that these came from gave me about 80 samples the other day, which is a lot of samples. And I said, hey, throw something together for me tonight. Like, give me 5 of these to pull and then send Sarah what they are, because I don't have an answer key for any of these. They're all going to Sarah's email, and she's writing the cards. And so he was like, hey, you know, do you want to do finished? Or do you want to just stick to a certain thing? And I said, do something crazy. So actually, I will take the blame for that. Even still, I don't think it's a negative thing. I like the flights that are thrown together this way because it's way more challenging for me. Maybe it's not as fun for the viewer. I'm actually not sure. But I think it's a fun flight, and it's pretty much my fault because I said go crazy. Anyways, let's now go to the second place. I said maybe Dusty Turkey or maybe like 1960s Old Forester. 86 proof. I said 8 years, really? All right, I'll stick with that. 8 years, bourbon, unfinished. It's 11. Let's see what it is. Oh my God. Okay, it's much older. Much older. Is this the right one? Oh, No, this is not the right one. That's not the right one. I actually got that one right, though. That's Pre-Fire Heaven Hill. Shoot, let me get the right one. Glass 12. Crap, I spoiled it. Look at this. Okay, 86 proof. There it is. There we go. Cascade Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 43%. So 86 proof, bottled in the 60s. Bottled in the 60s. I said it could be Old Forester from the 60s. But my primary guess was Dusty Turkey, so I messed that up. 6-year, bottled by Cascade Distilling, produced by James E. Pepper. Okay. Man, I tell you what. It tracks. Very good. But again, it's 86 proof. So you're always going to be wanting more from that. And finally, the last one. Pre-Fire Heaven Hill, I said 94 proof. I said it's very, very old. And then I said, actually, it might be significantly younger than I think because of the profile. So I ended up saying 13 years. In the beginning, in my mind, I was above 20 years. But I went down to 13. That was my final guess. I said Kentucky bourbon. I said, if it's a modern whiskey, it's a Michter's 10. That was my hedge. And then I said, possibly it came from a decanter. So this is Single Cask Nation, undisclosed distillery, which is Heaven Hill. Pre-Fire Heaven Hill, 24 years old, distilled in 94, birth year. And it is 90, yeah, there we go, 94.8 proof. I said 94. So pretty darn close on this. This is a great bottle. That's so good. I will say, though, after revisiting it right now, it does not feel 24 years old. No. I wonder if it spent its whole life in America or if it was Single Cask Nation. Are they based in the U.S.? Because Cadenheads is in Scotland, and oftentimes they'll move casks and finish aging them in Scotland, in which case they don't feel as old. They get tamer. They get saltier and brinier. Interesting thing about those. But this one, for some reason, feels like it just doesn't quite feel 24 years old. Maybe it's the amount of water that was added, you know? Because I have to imagine to get it down to 94, there's probably some water added. But I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, Adam, this is that bottle you were talking about. Very good. Wouldn't have quite guessed that. The 24 is a little high on the age guess for me, but... Oh, there we go. So Single Cask Nation spent 12 in Kentucky and 12 in Scotland. This completely tracks then. Okay. There we go. Cool, man. Very, very cool flight. So thank you to the person that sent these. I'm going to pour a few of these back because they're too good to dump out at the end of the night, especially these Dusties. But I'm going to pour them all back. So give me just a second, guys. For the 224 people that are in here, please hit that like button if you haven't already. And consider joining the Patreon, $5 or $10 a month. Great picks going on there. We have an amazing, amazing community in Discord. I would venture to say one of the most active Whiskey Tube Discords. Not trying to brag about that or like be a douche about that. But for only having 325 members in the Discord, very active and just a great group of people. You know, talking whiskey and everything else in there. All right. Noah, have you tried the 24 Gatsby yet? Yes. I have a sample of it. Can't remember if I tried it here or somewhere else. I don't know if I've tried my sample, but review on that's coming soon. Probably this coming week, actually. Richie, these are gold Sharpies. I have the 3-pack of the metallic, the bronze, gold, silver. They die out really fast, those metallic Sharpies. So it's always a different color. Because every time I go back and do another one of these flights, 2 out of the 3 are dead, and I have to order new ones. Josh, where's the link to the Discord? Check out in the Patreon, the pinned post in the Patreon. Check out the pinned post, because we don't have any, no part of our Discord is publicly available. It's all private to the Patreon, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. The pinned post at the top of the Patreon feed has a couple of like frequently asked questions type articles that you can link off to in Google Drive. And there's one called link. There's like a help link actually, maybe for linking your Discord to the Patreon. You have to do it in your settings, and then it'll automatically put you in there. And it's better that way because then it auto populates you into your correct tier in the Discord for your permissions. Because if I just send you a link to join in the Patreon, then we have to assign your permissions. We have to ask you what tier you're in and all that stuff. Yeah, at least 25% of the Discord is just people making fun of me. So, you know, that's great. All in good fun. Okay, sounds like people want to hear about the Gatsby. Let's see. Yeah, I must have taken a sip of this already. I only have just over half an ounce, so I can literally do one sip of this. Let me just give you a quick read. All right, I'll tell you this. It smells very old. Like, I love the nose on this. You know what it smells like? It smells like old Four Roses a little bit. That's all I can probably say about that. But it smells like old Four Roses. This is last year's Gatsby. I'm going to do an equally small amount in this glass so that the comparison is fair. So on your left is last year's Gatsby. What's what I have in my hand right now. And then this year's. Oh, wow. This year's nose is phenomenally better. Wow, that's actually a huge difference. Last year's Gatsby I really liked. Some really cool dark fruit notes. Smells and tastes like that smell when you're outside walking on like crunchy fall leaves. But it's everything you like about like dark fruit notes and old MGP. For last year's. And then it's just flat. Delicate. You can make the case that it's delicate. And I like it. My only problem with it is the price. If it's going to be this delicate, you got to have more oomph. That was, I think, my criticism last year. So I like the profile itself. However, let's move on to this year's. The nose is insane. It is so pungent. Super leather oak, like, and leathery oak appears in different ways for different brands. Knob Creek is a little more of the sour oak when it gets like really leathery. I would say the epitome of that for Knob Creek is Knob Creek 12 year specifically, very sour leathery oak. Once you hit 15, especially once you get to 18 year Knob Creek, then the leather and the oak get much sweeter and less sour. So that's how that appears in Jim Beam. In Heaven Hill, when you get leathery oak, it's usually like this funk. It's very Rickhouse funky on the finish. And then with Buffalo Trace, you get a very fresh leather note. That happens in George T. Stagg's, which we'll get into here in a bit. See if that one's got it. But with MGP, the leather comes off a little bit more like a Four Roses, like a really old Four Roses, which most people have never had the chance to try super old Four Roses. Some of the LEs come off very old, and some of the LEs do not come off very old. The 2024 LE actually has a lot of old notes, and so this has some of the 2024 LE on the nose for me of Four Roses, and it definitely has like kind of a funkier MGP leather. Very perfumed, very condensed on the nose, and it's a little higher proof than last year's. I think this is over 100 now. So let's do one sip of this. Ooh. Very aggressively dry. Like no moisture. Great bubble gum on the palate. Still that very strong, funky MGP leather. There's sweet oak and that great bubblegum note that are complementary, but how dry it is from a drinking experience point is it's a little unpleasant, I would say. I don't know. It's good. Like it tickles the old whiskey. Well, let's rephrase that. It makes the part of me that likes old whiskey happy. But then there's so many other things about it that I think could be improved, especially at the price point, that it's kind of a bummer. If you don't mind dry whiskey, I'd say this is a go. I think it drinks hotter and more intense than last year's, which it needs to. I might still pick one of these up to sit with it longer. And that's the only reason. It's not because like I'm thinking, oh, I'm gung-ho, I want to drink one of these, but I kind of want to sit with it and explore it a little bit. That would be the only reason I would pick this up for right now. Yeah, Eric, I said bubblegum, and it is like if the bubblegum note out of 100%, 20% of it is like an interestingly young note, but 80% of it is like a full, rich grape experience. So don't take that to heart as far as youth goes, maybe. Brian says, is the 2024 sweet and viscous? Viscous, it's hard to tell because that sip was so small. So I don't know. It is kind of crazy how much it smells like Old Four Roses, though. Justin, yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. Well, let me see how the 13th Colony flight goes at the end of this. How much of your Gatsby's left? Let's see how the 13th Colony flight goes at the end of this. If Batch 3 somehow wins, then maybe it's like, maybe not. We'll see. All right. We'll keep it moving. Oh, what was this? Oh, this is the other Gatsby, the 23. Okay, let me get these glasses out of the way, guys. Get a fresh round of glasses. Give me just a second. It's time to get into some reviews. The next studio that I have for the channel, whenever we get a house, like when we buy our house, probably next year. The next studio I have, it's number one, it's not going to be this teeny little spare bedroom. I'm going to have the whole basement converted into a live stream setup and a filming setup and all my percussion stuff. But one of my goals is to have glasses within arm's reach, so I don't have to get up and do that, which is such a small thing. But how great would it be to just be able to like reach right off screen and pull a glass down, and just from my seat on one side of the the setup, just have glasses readily available. I think that would be so nice. Anyways, that's just a small aside. Now let's keep going. Here's what we're gonna get into first. We're gonna get into Stagg 24B. So we'll get this poured out. I'm gonna get some air into this, and while we let it sit, I'm gonna pour some 24A for a comparison. 24A is well decorated. Justin is now on to. So again, guys, for those of you who weren't here at the beginning of the stream, Justin is the person who, number one, great, just friend. He was in the Patreon. You know, he helps do a lot of the mod stuff in the Discord with Will. But we met up today. I drove out to Indy, and we met up for this Stagg 24B, which is his, and this 2024 George T. Stagg, which actually I'm going to go ahead and pour the George T. Stagg so we can get some air into it. I think it's only fair that this thing gets some air time. Okay. So we'll let that sit. But Justin, I gave him some half-ounce pours of 8 of our upcoming picks that I still need to write tasting notes for, so I couldn't give him more. And he's going through them. So right now he's tasting the 11-year MGP bourbon that we picked from Short Barrel. I think it's around 120 proof, and it is a monster whiskey. So that's going to come out, I think, January 31st. That's weird. Weird nose on 24B. Eric, want to hear more about Year of the Rye? You mean the particular bottle? Huh. I think I need one more Stagg for this comparison. Oh, no. Yes, this is the one, 22A. Okay, so Year of the Rye, guys, is let me show you actually. I can do this very quickly. I like a chill stream like this. We're not doing a giveaway. I'm not rushing to get super chats in. There's not too many whiskeys to drink in one night. Like, we can kind of casually take our time through 2 hours, 2 hours 15 or so. I think, and be done after that. So let me show you guys what Eric is talking about if you haven't seen this yet. And if I'm talking too much about our barrel picks, please tell me. I don't want to be annoying about it. I promise. I just airdropped it. I wonder where it went. Oh. It didn't go through. Come on, airdrop. You got this. Oh. Okay, there we go. Hey, can you guys still hear me? I think my music cut out. I'm not getting anything in my ears right now. You guys can still hear me? Okay. Give me just a second. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with these. Check, check. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Please. Please tell me you can hear me. Ah, okay. Excuse me. I knew it had to be the browser. I just quickly went through and troubleshot everything. Like looking at my channel strip, we fixed that, turn it off, turn it back on, redid a couple things. It's like I think the browser just said no more. Like the browser wouldn't let anything become a microphone, which was so strange. I don't know. So nothing, Mac phone as a mic, nothing would work as a mic. So there we go. Victory. Good Lord. So many technology problems. Chat had a good time. I'm not in OBS, Devin. I'm in StreamYard, which is through a browser, but it's a little more simplistic than OBS. I like the simplicity of it, honestly, especially if I'm on the go and I'm like streaming from a hotel or something. So yeah, I'll kick that music back on. Sorry, guys. I think it's because what I did, I just turned my Bluetooth on my phone very quickly to airdrop something. My AirPods tried to connect to it real quick, and that's happened before, but usually I can get it back. It said no way. Okay. Eric, you broke everything. This is what we were talking about. This is why this all happened. I just wanted to show you this upcoming barrel pick. So this is the year of the rye, which is what we titled this pick. This is almost 13-year MGP rye. You can see the proof on there is about 110. It's 12 years, 8 months. We just wrote 12 on the labels, but I think it looks cleaner just to write 12. If you're in the Patreon, you know it's 12 years, 8 months. They turn, these barrels turn 13 in February, I want to say. This is not the typical MGP rye profile that we've been seeing this year from a lot of the high-proof 11-year ryes, which are now generally starting to turn 12. But those are the barrels that are between like 120 and 135 proof. Those are very, very dark, and I love the profile. That's what Chunky Monkey, Funky Monkey, and the first rye we did, all of those are from that lot of barrels. This one is from a different lot of lower proof barrels, many of which are very honey forward, very lemongrass forward. Some of them were too grassy. Some of them were like balanced with their grassiness, and it didn't bother me as much. But the one that I picked is a weirdly dark color for these barrels, almost a yellow tint to the whiskey, and so much char came out of the barrels, which is always a good sign usually when I'm picking. If you find something when you thieve it out of the barrel that's just full of barrel char, more often than not that you get a more flavorful whiskey for whatever reason. This one is more of like a ginger ale, brown butter profile to it, and I think it's really good. It's a different profile than the other stuff we've picked this year, but it's going to drop, I think, December 10th, I believe, is the date that we're going to drop that. So the bottle itself, I'll put it back up here. It's like the cleanest looking bottle that we've done with River Roots. I mean, Opus looks good. Don't get me wrong, which right now is all Christmas decorated. Opus looks good. Year of the Rye just looks clean. That's why I like it. So Eric, I do have some official tasting notes. Here's what I'll do. If you want to link off to him real quick, I'll put it in the chat here. So there's a link to the tasting notes. You can get to those tasting notes through the barrel pick tracker thing in the Patreon. All right, back to the Staggs. Wow, what a stall, huh? That was an ordeal, this whole thing. Darth Steve, way too early for... This is my wife, man. It's all Sarah. She did it. I blame her. Devin, have I had 2024 birthday? Yes, I really liked it, actually. I really, really liked it. I tried that on... No, yeah, you know what? I actually did a video on it. I did a video. It was paired with the 2024 Four Roses LE. I did a kind of a combo review video. So you can get my full thoughts are there. From what I remember now, it's got a lot of blueberry notes to it. I love blueberry notes in whiskey. A little bit yeasty on the nose. That's common for Old Forester, but not as common, I feel like, for birthday bourbon. This one... It's the only thing about it that I didn't like that felt kind of young, but the proof point's great. It's a very cohesive whiskey, not overly complex, just delicious. Because it's not overly complex, because it's not a barn burner like you might get from a President's Choice or a King of Kentucky, there's no way ever that I would pay secondary for it. But if I found it at retail, I'd be really happy. So now, as Eric said, we got the airtime on the Staggs. So on your left, this is the new Stagg 24B. On your right, back row, 24A. And in the front here, if I grab this front glass, this is 22A. I wanted to bring out 22A. It's one of my favorite batches ever of Stagg, just as a point of reference here. So let me do a quick nosing. All right, so 24B. There are different profiles for Stagg, typically. Some of them are extremely dark fruit forward. Some of them can be bright and candy shop, like batch 15 was. And actually, 24A, I really like 24A. It drinks more like an E.H. Taylor barrel proof because it's a little more of that vanilla candy shop sweetness and strawberry notes. But still great intensity. What's the proof? 127.6, and 24B is 127.8. So let's just basically say they're the same proof. So I like 24A a lot. Let's go to 24B. I don't know that I've ever gotten this on a Stagg. It's watermelon all the way on the nose. Extremely sour, and in a bright, it's like a watermelon Jolly Rancher is how this smells. Completely off profile in my opinion, because 24A is that bright candy shop sweet, and then 22A is dark. 24B, watermelon candy. Crazy. I don't know that I like this that much. Darth Steve says Stagg 22A is my second best batch behind batch 9. Yeah, I've never had batch 9. Maybe I did once in a blind, but never spent time with it. Batch 12 and 22A are my favorite batches by a long shot. Ooh, the palate. Much better than the nose. Much better than the nose. I'm very curious about this now because 24A felt hot to me, but I think this is the highest proof thing that I've had tonight. And then when I just tasted 24B, the palate felt extremely relaxed, and I'm not sure if it's a product of just being used to the proof now or if it really is relaxed in comparison. So let me do one more side-by-side taste. Back to 24A. No, that's got big spice. Almost like a little light whiskey vibe to it, but not in a way that I don't like, because usually light whiskey's not my jam. But it has the intensity of like a high-proof light whiskey almost on 24A. All right, now back to 24B. The nose is just so sour. It feels young, and I'm also just not a watermelon person 90% of the time. This is not a candy. I've never wanted to have, if I'm going to pull a Jolly Rancher out, it's going to be a blue Jolly Rancher or a green or a red. It's not going to be grape. It's definitely not going to be watermelon. And that goes for pretty much any candy. If there's a watermelon candy, I'm avoiding it. No, 24B is way tame on the palate. And it's super traditional on the palate, too. Like, I do get a tinge of the sour watermelon, but it's just an accent note amongst a sea of other common Stagg dark, kind of slightly bittersweet dark fruits that you get, and very heavy barrel char. I would say the palate on 24B, this will be a throwback. The palate on 24B to memory, it reminds me of batch 13. So that's really, really an older batch. Batch 13 had quite a bit of bitter sweetness to it and barrel char on the palate, like disproportionate amounts of that. I think 24B has quite a lot of that. '13 was not like one of my, highest favorite batches by any means, but it always stood out because of those extreme bittersweet notes in it. It's crazy how much the nose, I think, is not great on this, and how the palate is this just super like drinkable batch of Stagg. So let me do 22A now on the palate. That's still so good. So here's what I'll say about 24B, I think. Excuse me. I'll do maybe one more sip of it here. Below average batch on the nose. And I care a lot about the nose of a whiskey, admittedly. So not my thing. That smells like 4-year whiskey on the nose to me. 4-year barrel proof whiskey. On the palate, it's an average batch, I think, on the palate. So I don't know that this one would be a recommend for me. I'm interested to see if anybody out there has tried this. I just don't think that's it for me. I'd rather have 24A, even though 24A to me is kind of off profile in that brighter way. But by and large, 22A is the bomb. I liked 23A a lot too. 23B was a no-go. 22B was a no-go. Now 24B is a no-go. I wonder if there is a rhyme or reason to this, like the batching. And I think someone just asked about that. Eric said, do you think they go for a specific profile? I really don't know. I'm not sure. Everybody talks about ECBP as if they do. Excuse me, but I'm not sure if it's ever been confirmed that Heaven Hill is doing something in particular for those. I guess what I would think is like maybe they just say, hey, this, maybe let's say A is going to be low floors, B is going to be mid floors, and C is going to be high floors. Maybe they do something like that, but I don't think at scale with a batch of whiskey that's that big, you probably couldn't say like, I want this one to be a butterscotch bomb, because trying to blend that, I mean, how could you even test what you're about to blend? You would just probably start dumping and hope that it ends up there, So maybe they go for floors, but that's purely speculation. I don't know. Speaking of speculation, hey, real quick, guys, this is not my speculation, which is going to come as a surprise, I think, to a lot of you. I think this whole Russell's Reserve, let's talk laser codes real quick. Russell's 10, ME20. The people flipping that on secondary, number one, I think you guys are, I don't want to say losers, but like, stop flipping Russell's 10 on secondary and get a life. Number one. There are some things on secondary I understand. I purchase on secondary, quite often. Yeah, you got to do it to get your hands on things. And sometimes I purchase from people that are just notorious flippers. It is what it is. I don't love that. I prefer to purchase from people that I don't see flipping 50K of stuff a month. You know what I mean? I prefer to, if maybe it's somebody that just one-off does it or is trying to recoup money on a purchase they made. If you're flipping Russell's 10 on secondary, get a life. I'm sorry. That's crazy, especially in this day and age. However, the thing that's pissed me off the most about it is not the people flipping it. It's that everybody took what Rarebird 101 said, who specifically said this is speculative when he said maybe there are Russell's 15 reject barrels dumped in this. And he said it clearly, this is speculative. And I don't know if he ever came out with like a post solely saying, hey, this has since been denied by Wild Turkey. There is older stuff, but it's not Russell's 15 rejects. I don't know if he ever did a specific post about it, but he has certainly commented that in many places, and people have screenshotted it and shared it around. And you still have these opportunists on the secondary market saying, these are Russell's 15 reject barrels. And here's what I would say, guys. Like, I'm sorry to go soapbox real quick, but if you're reading something and you're regurgitating information to somebody, this is just like a life thing, I think. It's best to read everything carefully before you regurgitate information. And I'm not talking news articles and politics. We're only talking about whiskey. Just read what David Jennings said and read it and comprehend it entirely before you repeat what is not true. And it's not true because you were wrong, not because David Jennings was wrong, because he said it was speculation. That shit drives me nuts that I'm seeing on secondary now. I'm seeing people still today, probably 8 hours ago, say this on secondary in their posts. It's just not true. Joe, well, he literally has said in different comments, again, I said I don't think he's done a specific post about it, and maybe that would help, but that's not his, like, he doesn't have to do that, because in his original post, if he said this is speculation, then don't go telling everybody that this is true. That's on you, or, whoever's saying that. It's not on him. He did his due diligence on that. He could have not said anything, but he is like an expert on Wild Turkey, and he's speculating in a fairly responsible way by saying that it's speculation. You know what I mean? But anyways, okay. Anyways, that's off my soapbox. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you don't have to recant a speculation. It doesn't hurt to clarify, make a second post. I think we could all agree. But yeah, I mean, it does sound like he heard from somebody in the turkey camp or somebody close to somebody in the turkey camp that there are older barrels in this batch. It's clear. If you taste LLME 20, the only one that I've tasted, I've not tasted 17. I haven't tasted MD or MF or ME 19 or ME 16 or any of the others that I've seen. I've only tasted ME 20. And I can tell you it is a remarkable difference. You can do it blind or unblind. I've blinded several people at this point. And there's people in my local group say, blah, 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 this and that. Oh, Rarebird is making stuff up. I'm like, no, he's not. He said it was speculation, and you're the one that's being this way about it. It's a remarkable difference. It's a significantly better batch. It's the best Russell's 10 I've ever had in the modern era, besides old label Russell's 10s from 10, 20 years ago, whatever it was. But do your due diligence, whoever's posting about it, and read what he said and read his words carefully. It's so lazy. It's like headline reading. And then people just sharing stuff about headlines that they don't know anything about. All right, I'm done. Okay, but hang on. But I also don't, William, I will fight back a little, or push back on you a little bit here. Who cares about 90 proof bourbon anyways? I think it's delicious, man. And like, it's a bottle that I would take to somebody's house and kill with them who's maybe not into the cast strength thing. It's a great bottle, and it really is remarkably better. So I also don't like that approach of like totally writing it off. But the main point of course is just people lying, outright lying about it. That's a good point, Sam. Like Michter's 10 bourbon is like 94.4 or something. So that's a good point. It's low too. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. I'm going back to 24B again one more time. That watermelon thing is killing me. Got 22A is a monster. 24A, very, very good. 24B, no. I'm telling you, the palate on 24B is great. I said average. I might even go slightly above average on this. I think it's a really good palate. It's just that nose that holds it back. So that's a not recommend for me personally. Some people might like it. They might not mind that note on the nose. But I'm a pass on that one, unfortunately. Jesse, listen, if somebody, like if I could get samples, you know me, I'm down to do this. I'm down to clown a little bit on some laser codes. Although I can say this confidently this year, I am not the one that raised the values of Russell's 10 on the secondary market. I did raise the values of C923 A233 laser codes. That definitely happened. But I did not raise the value of Russell's 10 ME20 this year. So you win some, you lose some. This year we won. Has anyone compared those? I would happily do that comparison if I could get a couple ounces of each of those, including a couple ounces of ME17, 16. I think I've seen 19 and 20. I'd love to do that too and just see what happens. And it's just for the nerds. Like normal enthusiasts are going to say this is stupid and overkill. I don't care what they think. It's fun for me and it's fun for some people that are going to watch. Okay, let's move on now. It's time to get into some heavy hitters. Okay. Terry says, speaking of low proof, what's everyone's consensus on Buffalo Trace barrel picks? I like them. I like Buffalo Trace barrel picks. It's just, if I'm going to buy a Buffalo Trace anymore these days, I'm always going to buy a barrel pick. I don't even care whose barrel pick it is because they're all kind of in a pretty similar vein. They weed out all the oddballs typically, it sounds like. So you're kind of in a narrow range for those barrel picks. But if I ever drink Buffalo Trace, it's going to be a store pick. And if I have to pay $45 for one locally on secondary, that's fine. Like I'll pay the $45 because usually stores are going to mark those up a little bit too, maybe to like $35. So once you think $35 plus tax out the door, if you can find one $45 locally from a buddy, just buy one of those. And that's the only Buffalo Trace I'll drink. I've had one that's special. It was from a store called, I think it might be in Michigan, called Showerman's. Let me Google that real quick. Or is it Showerman's? Showerman's, yeah. Livonia, Michigan. Yeah, so I had a Showerman's pick that I thought was really, really good. Disproportionately good. That was from probably 4 years ago or something, maybe. I might even still have that pick open somewhere. It might be in this room. Crap. I knew it. It's the bottom shelf of the bar cart. Showerman's, Livonia, Michigan, barrel 231. I've had this for many years. Just a damn good pick. Parker, time to get in some heavy hitters and pull out ME20. That's good. That's good. I agree, Casket Salesman. I'll go for Buffalo Trace pick over a Blanton's. 100%. Oh, here we go, Toshi. Cam, sorry to derail, dude. No derailing. Tonight's chill. having a relaxed stream. Mike or Jake, and yeah. Yeah, Toshi, I think I'm with you. I hate to not give Stipe any credit, but it's just been so long, man. Stipe's got a puncher's chance. Cyril Gane, like the Cyril Gane fight with John Jones. Cyril doesn't hit very hard. It seems like in the division, like he moves well. I feel like he gives people trouble because of his agility, right? But when John Jones just strangled him up against the fence, that was pretty crazy. And I think Stipe has more of a chance on the feet than Cyril Gane had, for sure. But I think if John gets a hold of Stipe, it's just game over. And then Mike and Jake, I have no idea what to expect because I just don't know what to believe about this. The kayfabe about this whole thing is, I think it's good. Like, I think they've done a really good job. They did the documentary thing on Netflix, and you just don't know what to believe and what not to believe about any of it, you know? And then it's like, are they going to be allowed to knock each other out, but actually, like, their own conversations behind the scenes, not whatever they're saying publicly? I just don't know, man. But I hope to God Tyson, wouldn't it be great to see Tyson knock out Jake Paul? I mean, it'd also be scary because if he knocks him out, it's going to be ugly for Jake. I just don't know what to expect. I'm genuinely excited about the event because it's so insane and I don't know how it's going to go. But like, the reason I don't know how it's going to go is because I don't know what the actual... Is this professional wrestling, essentially? I don't know what actually is going to go on in the ring or what they've talked about outside of the ring. Because, like, Mike is old, and it's a little spooky to put him in there at his age. I don't like it. Toshi, I think I'm going to jump on with Matt, but Sarah also was like... Sarah wants to hang tonight or tomorrow night, and she doesn't want to come on stream, so I got to figure that out. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Because I also don't know the time of the event and what time they're going to walk to the ring. So I'm just not sure. I might be kind of in and out. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so on to George C. Stagg 2024. I've been smelling this, just trying to gather my thoughts before I start talking about it. Just so you guys know, 136.1 proof, which is 68.05% ABV. It's a very, very dark nose. Like, I picked up a second ago 22A, which is the darkest nose out of the Staggs I just had. Yeah, and it's like child's play compared to this George C. Stagg, which is good. That's how it should be, you know? The nose of the George C. Stagg is, I would say it's almost entirely dark fruit for me. Specifically just dark cherry, which is what you get on these. It's not particularly sweet. It doesn't jump out of the glass and feel inviting. It hits your nose and it feels like it's going to be a challenge. That's and that's kind of fun. But if you think about maybe like older, let's go to Heaven Hill distillate. Old Heaven Hill distillate, when you smell it, even at a high proof, it's oftentimes very inviting. Even Heaven Hill 17, it's got a little challenge to it, but by and large, it's inviting. And then many, many other Heaven Hill things are even more inviting, like an Evan Williams 23. You know, just thinking about like other kind of allocated stuff. This feels less inviting and more challenging. John, I am going to do that. Yes. So I'm going to put it next to the short barrel first, and then yes, I'll do that. So I think to me, this is an improvement. I don't have last year's to compare it to. I did get a sample from Matt Porter of the 2023 George C. Stagg. Hated it. Do not like 2023. 2022 is high octane, but and a little brighter profile than this, but grassy in the finish, and that drove me nuts about 2022, even though a lot of people liked it. I respect that because I'm more sensitive to grassy notes, I think, than a lot of people are. That's a me thing. This is just dark, and it's just purely dark, bittersweet fruit. I said the same thing about 22A, but it's just like 22A times 2. Wow. Oh, shit, man. All right. That's good. I'm waiting on the finish to see if there's any of that grassiness from 2022. And 23 had it too. No, man, that's just fucking good. Okay, all right. Now I'm like excited now. That is a great George T. Stagg. Put that up against 2018. That would be a fun comparison. I don't have 2018. I have 2008 though, so it's gonna taste dustier, but you know what? It's worth the comparison. This is. Look at this. This is hilarious. Damn, that's good. Oh my gosh. Whew, I'm so happy. You know, because I like to, I think I like to be critical about whiskeys. I like to be overly critical because I think, especially nowadays when you're talking about the market saturation, you're talking about brands like George T. Stagg that 10 years ago, every year was just banger, 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 incredible whiskey. Now the prices have gone so far up. Most whiskey across the board has typically declined, I will say, largely speaking, as we've seen the expansion of lines and portfolios from brands and NDPs and people selling their barrels, all this stuff. So to find a whiskey like this, 2024 George T. Stagg, that hits like this, it's like, thank you, finally. You know what I mean? It's like King of Kentucky. When you have one of those, except for the media sample that came out for this year's, you're like, holy shit, that's what good whiskey is. And finally, we get a George T. Stagg since 2020. Like 2020 was a fairway, down the fairway George T. Stagg. 2019, same thing, down the fairway. 2018 was the last mofo George T. Stagg, in my opinion. And it's so funny to talk like this because I remember like 18 months ago and I was like, I've never had a George T. Stagg. Or 2 years ago, whenever it was. I'm like, I've never had one. And then I started, now you're talking vintages, and it's like, I know this sounds crazy and pretentious or whatever to talk like that, but it's just literally because people like Toshi sending me crazy samples of these things. This is a mofo. Mark Wells, did I overpay today for that at $500? No, that's a $500 whiskey. It doesn't feel good to pay $500 for it, but when you think about other things out in the market, like this drinks like a $500 whiskey. That's probably the most I'd want to pay for this. I still don't want to pay secondary for this, which is about $800, $850. If I'm going to do that, I'm probably going to try to get an older vintage just because there's a little more of a dusty quality to it. But this is an outstanding George T. Stagg. Yeah, I'm not, again, like Darth Steve, I'm making a, sorry, I keep clearing my throat. I'm making kind of a generalization here. I'm not, like, of course there are going to be people putting out good whiskey nowadays. There's always going to be good whiskey. I just mean, when you look across the board at what has happened since 2020 with whiskey, I think we've seen a decline in quality. You know, Remus Repeal Reserve went down the drain after batch 5. Hate to say that because the earlier ones were incredible, but that's gone downhill. You had some rough years, in my opinion, for George T. Stagg. You've had last year, William LaRue Weller was just a hot mess, in my opinion. King of Kentucky this year, weirdly bad. Like, you can sit and focus on all. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof went totally down the tubes for many years. Booker's kind of down the tubes after 2019. Slow recovery now. The point is, I think it's been more negatives than positives as far as these kind of like mainstay lines and brands and LEs from certain places. But you get these diamonds in the rough here, like this 2024, and it makes me have faith again. Jason, that's a great question. Better than Russell's 15? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. Now we got some comparisons to get into. Now we're about to enter the danger zone. Look at the cork on this 2008. Thing has seen better days. Just a little teeny pour of that. I'm going to go ahead and get some other things poured out. Guys, just got to make a little room on the table before I can do this. So let's do some comparisons now. Yeah, Sean, highway to the danger zone. Yes, it is. I'm going to, I don't want to get too saturated. Yeah, maybe it has to do with the oak. I think a lot of it has to do with it would be hard to know this. It would be hard to know if it's barrel selection or just overall declining quality in oak. That's hard to know. But certainly something is going on with the barrels in a lot of the batches of things that are coming out nowadays. Then you see freak things happen like Michter's 10 2023 and 2024. For some reason, the Michter's 10s shot way up in quality, but seemingly they were older whiskey. I think Jesse brings up a good point here. I'll put this on the screen while I grab... What do I need to grab? Russell's 15. I don't know if this is what was on here. I got to get the hats right, you know? All right. We'll get the short barrel here poured from River Roots. And the last two are actually going to be our picks from River Roots. And I have to be very careful with these because I do not have very much of these left. I have more of my barrel, the Bard, than I do Sarah's barrel. So I'll pour these out and let them sit for a second. Sarah's, and here's the deal. Sarah's barrel of the 15-year, Wild Turkey, Buffalo Trace, whatever, has so much char in it. And I think, that's, again, it's not always a sign of a good barrel, but more often than not, the good barrels do have a lot of char like this. So we'll let these sit out for a second. But first, I want to compare the George T. Stagg 2024 to the 2008. Let's do the first comparison here. And so 08 is actually hazmat. It's 141.8. So it is 5.7 proof points higher. So a decent little bump as compared to the 2024. Rob, yeah, the short barrel that I've got from River Roots, if I mention the short barrel, that is the one that's dropping tomorrow. Wow. Damn. I mean, 2024 is so purely dark fruit. That is so damn good. Now, over to the 2008. 2008 has this coffee cake note to it and this kind of slightly dusty butterscotch thing. But the coffee note, to me, is what stands out on 08. You can tell it's hotter. It has an ethanol kick on the nose. And the 2024 is just more fruit. It's more dark fruit. But let's go to the palate. It's so that the palate's a little tougher because the 08 palate it's just coffee and dark chocolate plus dark fruits in the background, whereas 2024 is dark fruits only, and it's obviously in the foreground. Still, though, I think if you put these two next to each other, you might actually have some people that prefer the 2024 in a weird way because it's so fruity. If they want fruity whiskey, if they don't want quite the proof of the 08, which is very intense, and that coffee note, which I know coffee can be a hit or miss note for some people. But look, 2024 is amazing. So with that said, let's do a comparison to Russell's 15. The proof is not fair. There are 20 proof points of difference between these. So you have to keep that in mind. Let's see. Jay Boogie says, is River Roots dropping on their website? Is it 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow? And it'll be password protected. Someone said that, Pink Dan. And I think the only place they're going to drop the link is going to be in the Facebook group called River Roots Rickhouse. So yeah, like what we have here, George C. Stagg to Russell's. These are going to be completely different experiences, I would imagine. And the proof is a tough thing. So this is one of those things where when you end up trying to say which one's better, I mean, that's like, how do you answer that question? So we'll find out. Let's see. This is George T. Stagg on your left and Russell's on your right. Man, yeah, you know, you can't beat the antique notes in the Russell's 15. Those old suede notes in here. An antique store. And compared to the George T. Stagg, which again I said is just purely super rich dark fruit, the Russell's feels much more chocolatey. Very much a dark chocolate. The George T. Stagg 08, I mentioned having coffee notes. Coffee and dark chocolate are somewhat closely related as far as whiskey notes go. However, there's zero coffee, in my opinion, on this Russell's 15 as compared to the George T. Stagg 08, because the 08 George T. Stagg is a coffee bomb. So the Russell's 15 to me, then comparing it to the 2024 Stagg, it just smells like incredible dark chocolate, and what comes through are kind of slightly dried, you know, dehydrated or whatever, purple and dark and black fruit notes, and then that like old car old interior of an old car, an old muscle car. And then George T. Stagg, you just get those fruits. The proof is evident on the nose between the two. They're both ridiculous. That was turkey. God bless America. That's so good. That's so good. It's crazy that can... It's crazy when you're talking 20 proof points of difference and you're like, I don't really care about the proof difference, you know? Before I speak too soon, let me taste the Stagg now after the Russells, but... The Russells is like... Oh, man. I'll be damned, though. The Stagg is so good. And if you want some... If people are going for that drinking experience of, like, just melt your face off intensity... God, the Stagg is so good, too. I mean, listen... When I think about top 5 whiskeys of this year, that Stagg is probably in the conversation. Like, what else? The Old Fitz, VVS, is in that conversation with these. I mean, that is a top whiskey for sure. I probably like the Russell's 15 better, though. I probably do. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to, like, this stream is not for me to make a whiskey of the year type decision. I don't even know if I'm going to make that decision this year. Every year I say, I'm going to do a bracket or I'm going to try to narrow it down. And then I end up not having enough of those whiskeys left from samples or bottles. And it's like, what am I going to do? Yeah, Rarebird's right. Proof isn't everything, flavor is, and Russell's 15 has the flavor. It really does. Again, David, I'm still going to say I think it's a little rough around the edges in some ways. And when you put it next to something like a George T. Stagg, even though this George T. Stagg is really good, George T. Stagg is brash, and it just attacks your mouth. So then when you compare it to Russell's 15, none of those things that I've said about Russell's 15 being rough around the edges, none of those things stick out to me right now because it's the lower proof one of the pair and it feels more flavorful. But I think for me, like, there are still like roller coaster type bumps in Russell's 15 that hold it back slightly. And I'll say it again because Dan Shook gives me so much shit about this. Even though there are those rough around the edges things about it, it's still probably the best whiskey of the year and maybe the best whiskey of the last 3 years or something like that. So how good does a whiskey have to be while still being imperfect, in my opinion, to then to say that it's that good? It's fucking incredible. And then I always ask myself, what if this was left at cask strength instead of 117.2? That would be insane. Eric, will I be able to get the Sagamore 7? I think I ordered the 6-year last year online. I'm trying to think of where it was. It may have been Sealbox that I got that one. But I don't think we get the bottled in bonds here in Ohio, but I'm not sure. Here, guys, let's just put this on the screen. Brian has the best take of the night. This is it. And we should probably put like one of the C923 laser codes in there too. Although that's not this year, so I guess you're right. I am not, dude. I'm not saturated, Sam. I'm really not. I still say Russell's 15 is a little rough around the edges. And if I had to attribute that to something, I would attribute it to putting water in it. I know that's like totally speculative, but I just think that might be the case. Dude, LLME is legit. Yes. We talked about this earlier, David. I don't think you were in here, but we talked about people taking you out of context and not reading everything you said, just reading part of what you said, which pisses me off. When you say, hey guys, I'm about to speculate, and then you say something, and then people take that and say it as truth, and then use that to upcharge things on secondary, that's so stupid. It's like, that's like reading headlines. You didn't read the article. No, I love when you let them cook. That cracks me up, man. Parker, that's what I heard too, man. I know you did. I know you did. And so to see it on secondary being cited all over the place is 80% so frustrating and 20% like, no. 80% frustrating, 10% like pissed off because you didn't read, maybe. But the other 10% is the possibility of those people just outright lying to make a buck. That's even worse. And like I said earlier, get a fucking life if you're flipping Russell's 10 on secondary. Go flip other things. Fine. Flip Weller Antique. Been there, done that. Don't flip Russell's 10. Come on. Okay, let's get back to some whiskey stuff now. Every time I pour this 08 George T. Stagg, I have to, put it back and save it for the last sip of the night. I would say it's not a bottle I get into often, but you guys can see that, well, this has been shared quite a bit. But it has not lasted as long as I would have hoped. I opened this in February of this year, so it's lasted 9 months. Can you guys imagine, though? Can you guys imagine 140 to 150 proof Russell's 15? Can you imagine that? Or just like anything turkey at that proof with some age. I've tasted Heaven Hill like that, and it's batshit crazy good. So turkey with those stats, I cannot even imagine what that would be like. I know, Hooper. I was just trying to, that was a very rough thing. Statement. Alrighty. The vibes of this stream tonight are immaculate. Thanks, Casket Salesman. Thanks, dude. Let's move on now. This is going to be a little bit of a selfish comparison, so please, be forewarned about that. But I'm going to put 2 of our barrel picks that are going to come out in January. And this is listen, if some of these other things are better, I'm going to tell you they're better. I have no problem with that. Because what we're comparing right now, I need, Justin, I'm going to take just a teeny little bit more here of the George T. Stagg. I promise I'm not going to drink too much of your Stagg. Just watch the fill line, dude. But we're going to do the 24 Stagg up against the short barrel that's dropping tomorrow from River Roots, which is not our pick. But this is one that I really, I would have begged and kicked and screamed to get this. But I knew they were going to release this as a distillery release, which I think is super cool. And I love it because Ryan from River Roots on the side here, selected by Ryan Lentz. So I love that about this bottle. The artwork is badass. And this is one of those Bufferky barrels. 15 and a half years old, 131 proof, so it's one of the high proofers. So we're going to compare this next to George T. Stagg. And then I also have Sarah and I's picks of that same Bufferky distillate. Sarah's is about 120 proof, 15 and a half years. And then mine is 16 years at 133 proof. So mine is actually higher proof than the shorty that River Roots has. This is going to be River Roots as well. But it's not a short barrel. It's about 90 bottles, and this one was 57. So we're going to compare these to the George T. Stagg 2024 just to see how this Bufferky distillate does in a comparison to GTS. Yeah, Eric, I don't know if we're going to get to that 13th colony. We'll see. Parker, yes, exactly, dude. I still need to write the tasting notes for that Irish whiskey. I can't believe we picked an Irish whiskey. It simultaneously feels incredibly irresponsible and also very exciting because it doesn't taste like Irish whiskey. Justin, it's okay. I'll send you a Venmo request. All right, let's do this. So nose, first we got 2024 Stagg. Now the short barrel from River Roots. And let's just check color quickly. The River Roots is significantly darker than George T. Stagg. So that's kind of interesting. But this is a short barrel and it is a very dark whiskey. Wow. A lot of these Bufferky, I'm going to keep saying that. I could call them Turkolo barrels. We could call them Bufferky or Turkolo. It's the same thing. A lot of these Turkolo barrels are extremely bright fruit, strawberry candy fruit notes, even though they're 15 or 16 years old. So I thought that maybe that would stand out. Even though this is a short barrel and it's a super dark profiled version of this, I still thought maybe it would stand out against the George T. Stagg as being a brighter nose. This one in particular doesn't really. It's almost the same fruit experience between the two. It's very close. George T. Stagg leans more into the dark cherry. And this is more of a cola / if dark strawberry exists, that's what this is. Because you still recognize it to be strawberry, but it's not that bright candied strawberry. It's more of like this like very ripe, fresh strawberry with cola notes, a little bit of root beer. And then George T. Stagg is just pure dark cherry. So let's now taste the River Roots. Good God. Before I start heaping praise on this barrel, let me just tell you guys. David Jennings says they call it buffalo turkey. Let's say buffalo turkey. Boofed turkey. I'm not going to say that. Before I heap praise on this short barrel, let me just tell you guys, at this point, I've tasted about 50 barrels of the buffalo turkey stuff. 2 different sessions, about 25 barrels each. At a broker down in Kentucky, and then River Roots. I was there with River Roots. We ended up buying, I think they ended up buying 6 from one lot of 25 and maybe 8 from another. And a couple of those were shorties. But 80% of these barrels are god awful, like not very good. Definitely not worth the price that you have to sell them for based on the barrel cost. But every once in a while you find a barrel out of these that is phenomenally good. And the best one that I think up to this point I've ever tasted is probably this short barrel from River Roots, which is this has a special place in my heart because when we found this that day and we realized how light the barrel was when we weighed it, it was like, this is only going to have about 50 bottles in it. And they still managed to get this barrel, which was so cool. I am going to be curious to compare this next to the 2 that we picked because this was not an option for us to pick from. This was just like the ultimate that they kept back for themselves. Understandably so, because it's so good. But I just want you to know that it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and tasting time and alcoholism and in 2 different sessions to find this barrel and some of these other barrels amongst a sea of very bad buffalo turkey barrels. So my advice to everybody is when you're seeing these buffalo turkey barrels pop up and hit the market, just, I wouldn't blindly buy these from every single group that you see put them out. I would be very discerning and pay attention to who picked the barrels. Like, if it's a group that you're a part of and you know that person's palate and you trust them, go for it. If it's like somebody has barrels that go public because they didn't sell all of them out to their group and you don't know this person's palate, be careful, because a lot of these are not good barrels. And particularly a lot of the really low proofer ones I've found are not great barrels. They tend to go very flat when they get around that 110 range. So there you go. So anyways, this shorty from River Roots, absolutely insane. And it's one of the only one of these barrels that I've tasted that has such a strong root beer note to it, which is not common amongst these barrels. That's more of a Kelvin, a Kelvin aged kind of note that you get. I don't know that these were Kelvin barrels. I don't think they were. At least I didn't see that on the barrel heads. So now back to George T. Stagg 2024. That's a great whiskey, the Stagg. This is better. And I promise I'm not just saying that. It's darker, it's richer, and it's more complex. It has a slightly lower proof, and you do feel that on the palate. You feel the George T. Stagg being more intense. But it's also more one-dimensional. Man, the Stagg's good. Like, in my opinion, I couldn't put that in a top whiskey of the year list because it's a 57 bottle short barrel. That is... Russell's 15 is probably still going to beat it, but it's higher than George T. Stagg 24, which is freakishly good. So Noah, the high proof Lucky Sevens were Barton, and they were a little bit more. They were a little bit spicier, and they had like this, like especially the high proof ones, very aggressive spice to them. Almost like I talked earlier about some sort of texture in certain whiskeys. They almost had a little more of a textured feel to them. Very fruity as well. The banana notes were not very present, even though they were Barton. I love those. I love the Lucky Sevens. But they are pretty different than the Buffalo Turkey stuff that's coming out right now. Rarebird, my only question is, I've heard two different things. I've heard that it was turkey grains, and I've heard that it's Buffalo Trace grains. Those are the things that I don't know about this. And then I heard that it was Buffalo Trace's yeast. But none of that is confirmed. I mean, hell, how much of this is actually confirmed? You know what I mean? But the yeast and the grains, I maybe you know more than I do. I don't know what you can share or not share. But I've heard it so inconclusively on both sides that I feel comfortable just like saying out loud that I just, I don't know. So anyways, the short barrel dropping tomorrow is totally freakish. Now let's compare to, and I haven't done this comparison yet. I just got this bottle a few hours ago in the mail. And again, it's dropping tomorrow. The reason I got it earlier today is because I was part of the pick team for it. That's the only reason I have that. So my wife, Sarah, picked a barrel. Yeah, there you go. Bottom line, it's bulk whiskey, so you'll never know the whole truth. There you go. Brian, what happens when I speculate? Just other YouTubers talk shit or what? Is that what happens? Because that's okay. I can handle that. Right. So my wife picked a barrel, and hers is about 120 proof. And to me, I think it's just an exceptionally dark and caramel forward balanced buffalo turkey. And usually these buffalo turkeys lean more into those candied strawberry notes, I think, by and large. But every once in a while you find one that has an off note for the style of whiskey. And it sounds weird to say that caramel is an off note, but for these barrels, caramel is actually an off note because they are so candied fruit forward. There's been another barrel that I've tried that was just like a tobacco bomb, and it was really weird because you don't expect that much tobacco on such a candied fruit profile. It's a very opposite note to the main quality of the whiskey. So Sarah picked one that is very, very fruity, but also has this caramel middle to it that is, it reminds you of those like caramel chews, those candies. And it's only 120 proof, so it's going to have a hard time against some of these others. But as far as flavor goes, you know what? Russell's 15. Okay, well, Russell's 15 is just so good. Yeah, that's true. It's not a Campari contract because the fill dates are before Campari owned Wild Turkey. Yeah. I did know that. I did not know, David, that it wasn't because the still was down. I've heard that story said a lot. I've also heard the story that it was distilled for the Duke brand and that they backed out of the contract, but I'm not sure if that's true. All right, now let me taste mine, which is called the Bard. Sarah's is called the Princess. The label artwork is pretty cool for those. I don't think I've actually shown those here. Let me see if I can upload those. No, that's not what I wanted. Well, we can upload a Photoshop file, I guess. All right, so what I tasted first from Sarah is this label. So this is the full label. It's called the Princess. So as you can see at the bottom, 15 years old, 120 proof. And that's an estimate. Bottle 1 out of 90, that's an estimate. And then, so that's this. That I said is very, very balanced and has that extra caramel middle to the whiskey besides those very candied strawberry notes, but also a little bit of a darker fruit note to it as well. And just overall, the drinking experience is full, whereas a lot of these can be flat on the palate. And then the one that I did is actually, so similar color scheme, but it's called the Bard, being a musician. And instead of this Bard playing a lute, I have him playing a drum, just for being a drummer. So we have the Bard here, and this one is actually 133 proof, and also estimated to be 90 bottles. So Princess and Bard, cool little label combo that we're going to drop in January for these. And so my barrel, the Bard, is a total vanilla cream bomb. And that's what I love about it. Yes, it's 133 proof, and I like that fact because a lot of these can drink a little bit under and a little bit flat. So the 133 brings all of this presence to the palate. But whereas, well, you know what? Let's just do the comparison. So the short barrel here is 131 proof. And like I said, those root beer notes, those cola notes, and all those dark fruits. My barrel is like the opposite. It's a similar concentration and proof, but it's just a vanilla cream bomb. And super sweet. Not a lot of bitter in mine. And the short barrel, darker profile for sure, which is more reminiscent of Sarah's. But Sarah's is at a lower proof. So let's put some of these next to the George T. Stagg now. Already I've determined that their short barrel beats George T. Stagg 2024. So let's see about Sarah's first. Let's go to the nose. It's very close on the nose. The proof disadvantage is clear for Sarah's. I would say Sarah's is less fruit intensity than the George T. Stagg. That's the way I would put it. It's sweeter, and the George T. Stagg is fruitier. Sarah's has lower proof, and it's obvious on the nose. Let's taste it. But that caramel note in the middle is crazy. You get all the fruit up front, and it's a little bright. It's a little strawberry candy at the front of the palate. As it rolls back, rich caramel chew notes, Carmelo candy bar. You get into the finish, and it just gets darker and darker. So it goes from light to dark on the palate. And the whole time, it sticks to the palate, sticks to the tongue, but it's not drying. So I like that. George T. Stagg 24. What's funny is when you compare George T. Stagg 24, not only to Russell's 15, but also to these, it starts to feel slightly grassy. So I think that's a matter of comparison to these other profiles. Because earlier I did not pick that up when I came off of the Stagg Juniors to this George T. Stagg. All right, and now let's do a sip of the 16-year, the Bard. I don't know. The Bard stands up to the George T. Stagg better than Sarah's. Sarah's is just in a different proof category. So it's just at a disadvantage. I think the Bard might be at that level of George T. Stagg 24. I don't want to say it's better right now because that's going to sound very biased. The flavor profile is completely different. Similar fruit notes a little bit, but it's, again, a vanilla bomb. But I think you get a super comparable experience. Justin says, Cam, you can pour more of the GT. Okay, Justin. I'll do a little bit more because I want to do one more taste next to the Bard. Again, dude, keep track of the fill line. We're doing good. I don't have enough of Sarah's to pour any more of that. So this comparison now is more for the Patreon members who are going to buy these bottles, and they're going to be around $300 a piece. They're not cheap whiskeys by any means. All right. So on the nose, I would say it's literally just a difference of profile on the nose. You're talking about a 15 and a half year George T. Stagg, distilled by Buffalo Trace, and a 16-year distilled by Buffalo Trace, but not aged at Buffalo Trace. And this is pure vanilla with fruits supporting, and the George T. Stagg is pure dark fruits with dark honey supporting, essentially. So you get the same intensity on the nose and just two different profiles, but they're closely related in a lot of ways. So let's now start this time with George T. Stagg first on the palate. Justin, are you comparing these? Are you tasting the... What are you doing right now? Tasting the Bard and Princess? Oh, there you go. I prefer Bard over Princess if I had to pick one. I think they're very different, and they're different proof points, which is a tough comparison, you know? Yeah. Either way, I'm not going to... I think the Bard is at an equal level of George T. Stagg. It's kind of weird to say that. I know that's one of our picks, so take that with a grain of salt for sure. Sarah's is essentially a lower proof. It's the same quality level, but it's at a lower proof, so when you put it side by side with the George T. Stagg, it doesn't stand up, just because of the proof. But it's also, I think, richer than the Bard because of that caramel note that comes in on the mid palate. All right. Let us move to the final tasting of the night. And I have 3 glasses left. Let me see here. You know what? Let's do the craziest infinity glass of all time. And you know what? Let's just throw in the George T. Stagg 08. So, the infinity and the infinity glass. Matt Porter, I just saw you said you were 25 minutes behind. You're talking about LLME. Yes, I saw that and I'm like, man, that's like a long time ago we were talking about that. So the infinity glass is going to live at the front of the table. All right. Justin, thanks again, man, for the George T. Stagg and the Stagg 24B. So we need 3 glasses. And now it's time to end the stream with oh my God, it's 2 hours, 45 minutes in. Well, didn't see that coming. Although, that's pretty predictable at this point. We are going to do a 13th Colony blind flight. And all we're going to do is rank 1 through 3, the first 3 releases. All right, so I'm double stickering the bottom. Bottoms are labeled in pencil, so very light, 1, 2, and 3. I don't exactly have the proof points of all of these. I have the proof points of batches 2 and 3 of the 13th Colony Double Oak, but I don't have the proof point of 1. Batch 1, this was a sample sent from Toshi, actually quite a while ago, and I never got around to doing this with batch 2. Then batch 3 came out, and it's like, well, I guess we're going to do all 3 of these blind. I was going to do this in a video originally, but I thought, you know, just do this on a live stream. I don't really need to make a video comparing batches of 13th Colony Double Oaked. That seems kind of unrelatable, I would say. Matt says triple sticker or you're a cheater. So very different fill levels. So we have a sample that's gotten some air to it. We have batch 2, which is almost empty, and a batch 3 here, which is quite full and was opened basically 3 weeks ago, I think, on the last live stream we did. That would have been right around the time I opened this. Okay. Cool. I just want to make sure these are all the same fill levels. So when I mix them up, we're good to go. So I'm not going to be able to show you guys which one of these is which as we go through this, just because I didn't make cards for it or anything. But there's only 3 pours, and we're not guessing stats. We're just going to rank them in order from favorite to least favorite. So I think it's okay. Rizzle D says, what don't you like about the Garrison Bros Cowboy Bourbon flavor? Oh, it's totally the Texas funk. It's the, I mean, they use like really small barrels, I think. If I'm not mistaken, I think Garrison Brothers uses small barrels. But it's not only that, it's also probably the heat and is it pot stilled as well? I mean, it's all the craft bourbon notes combined into one thing to a point that it's unpleasant, I think. But I understand why people like it. Okay. All right, let's get into this. So we're going to go A, B, C is the way this is going to work. You know what? I'll sticker them as such. So when I rank them, we know, which is which. So class A, class B, and C. All right, let's go to glass A first. Let's do a quick down the line. It's like jumping into 13th Colony Double Oaked is like a total paradigm shift. Interesting. So glass A on the nose. Smells like maple bacon. Just total breakfast. Chocolate, coffee. Yeah, maple syrup. Smoked ham, bacon. Torched orange. Super intense and in your face. Glass B. Completely reserved on the nose. A completely different experience than A. And this is surprising. I did not expect this. This is delicate and gentle, fruity and sweet. Doesn't have all the savory qualities. There's a case to be made for each of these, depending on what why you're drinking this bourbon. If you want it to just melt your face with flavor, and you don't care if it's a little rubbery and a little overcooked, then A is great. If you want actually more balance from these, which I never would have thought any of these would have provided balance, to be honest, that's B. And then C, kind of like A, very intense, even more rubbery. Yep. C is my least favorite on the nose, and A and B are a tie because they are completely different experiences, but at a same level of quality. So let's go down the line. A on the palate. I mean, you talk about challenging whiskey. I said that about George C. Stagg 2024. That doesn't hold a candle to this in terms of challengingness. These are challenging. Wow, A is a lot. A is a lot. I got to give that a second. Zach Jones, I hate you. Also, I love you. Cam 100% did this blind before the start of the stream. No, I didn't. Aaron, yeah, I don't know how I'm still here 3 hours later. I thought this was going to be a quick one. Whatever. All right, Glass B. You know, it is more reserved and more tame. But the flavors in Glass B, even though it's not going to last as long on the finish because it's more tame, that, just like I talked about on the Shorty River Roots, which these are different profiles for sure, but this is like sarsaparilla root beer. That's like the primary note, which is interesting because the primary note on A is just this oaky, intense, you know, they stave these with maple staves or something. This is just an oak bomb in Glass A. Glass B tastes like a great whiskey, not like a great, you know, concoction. And I don't say that disparagingly. I just mean there's a lot going on in A. It's unfocused. B is focused on the profile. But it's actually remarkably tamer than A. And that's surprising because I thought all of these were pretty similar as far as proof goes. And now C is just rubbery and oaky. Smells like a Texas whiskey, this one. Yeah, that's last place. It's very grainy. It's very grainy, very textured, feels young. It's not even in the same league as these other two. So let's figure out the winner. Zach, I wish I was going to see Nick. He's freaking flew into Detroit today, and I'm like, dude, I want to drive up to Evernorth and eat at Cafe Zinc tomorrow morning. I wish. All right, let's get back to this. I'll go in reverse order now. I love B. I love it. But I don't, it's not what I expect when I get 13th Colony Double Oaked. It's what I expect when I have just a damn good whiskey. And 13th Colony Double Oaked is like its own category of whiskey at this point because it's so just full of crazy flavors. All right. I'm going to give A the win. I'm going to give A the win based on objectivity because subjectively I actually like the flavors of B more, but it's so much tamer that I don't think it stands up. And C is just not very good. I just don't like C. So let's see what these are. Starting with C, let me make a few guesses now. I think C is the newest batch, 2024, batch 3. And it is. Yeah, the new 13th Colony Double Oak to me is not it. I do not like it. It feels like there's very young whiskey in this blend. It's got that grainy texture to it. Glass B, I have no clue between 1 and 2. I think it's probably 13th Colony Batch 1. It is 13th Batch 1. Because I don't remember Batch 2 tasting this way. And so the winner is Batch 2, and Batch 2 is a freak of nature. And that's very good whiskey. Batch 1's good. it tastes more like regular bourbon should. And batch 2 tastes more like, I think, what we've all come to expect from 13th Colony Double Oaked, which is flavor bomb, blown out of the water by staves, and extra oak influence and heat. You can't go wrong with either one of those, but I think you can go wrong with this most recent release. I don't think that's it. 22B is a no-go for me, Chase. Mike and Noah, thanks for the private stock recommendation. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I think that's a very special whiskey. All right, so that's going to do it, guys. I'm going to get out of here. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. 13th Colony, the River Root Shorty tomorrow. That's going to drop. Beats, in my opinion, George C. Stagg 2024. This is a top 5, let's just say top 5 whiskey of the year that I've had so far. Top 5, top 7, whatever it may be, because single barrels, it's hard to factor those in. It's incredible whiskey in that bottle. Covered George C. Stagg 24. We covered 24B Stagg, comparison to 22A and 24A. The one I didn't get to that I wanted to, but it's too late at this point, is the Crittenden's Mothman. We'll get this on another stream, I promise. And there was other stuff too. Remus Gatsby, Whole Blind Flight. Thanks, guys. That's going to do it. Hit that like on your way out. Check out the Patreon if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the Discord. Probably going to try to order some tacos. Maybe a gyro. That sounds good too. All right. Cheers.